time is happening to us, and God is nowhere around. There are times when we are faced with threats and hostilities which we cannot explain, and there are times when we begin to panic as if there's no way out. I think all of us have faced times in our lives when we cry and wonder if anyone hears. Esther 6 informs us God does hear, he does care, he will intervene, and in his time and in his way, he will come to our rescue. God can intercede in the midst of some of the most intimidating and threatening circumstances and make them become beautiful for his child. He's promised that he will take care of our enemies. He's promised that vengeance does belong to him, and when the timing is right, we can be sure enemies will swiftly fall. That is certainly one of the things you see when you look at Esther chapter 6. Because in the perfect timing of God, he delivered his faithful people. And in this context, they were surrounded by various threats. He stepped in at just the right moment, and he destroyed those who were causing the problem. Now, we may not sense that God is anywhere. You may be in a situation right now where you're under terrible pressure. You may be in a very difficult relationship. You may not sense that God is near you. You may not see God working in your crumbling world, but you can most assuredly know that if you are right with the Lord, he is with you. He will not fail you. He will not forsake you. Now, it's no coincidence that God stepped in after Esther decided to do what was right. She decided that she was going to take a stand. She decided that she was going to do what God would have her do. It's also no coincidence that God decided to step in after Haman decided to kill Mordecai. God wants his people to be obedient. He never does anything before the right time. He never does anything behind the right time. God does everything in exactly the perfect time. Esther was faithfully moving forward to the Lord, and God was now going to step in, and in his sovereignty, he was going to see to it that Haman would be destroyed. Now, the sovereignty of God must never become a crutch for disobedience or apathy. When you read Esther chapter 6, we realize that the doctrine of God's sovereignty does not replace the doctrine of human responsibility. Esther and Mordecai had responsibilities. And when they took their responsibilities seriously, God intervened, and he did that which they could not do. This chapter is about the amazing sovereignty of God and the timing of God. Dr. H.A. Ironside wrote, "It has been well said that although the name of God is not in this book, the hand of God is plainly to be seen all throughout it." Now, there are 6 major demonstrations of God's sovereignty in Esther chapter 6 that I would like to point out to you. First of all, God's sovereignty controlled the king's insomnia. I'm reading from Esther 6:1. During that night, the king could not sleep. We would do well to remember the historical context of this. The king had just come from a banquet which featured much drinking of wine. Alcohol is a depressant. It usually makes one drowsy and sleepy. It dulls the senses. It slows one down. If we keep in mind that this king had just come from a banquet which features drinking, it is even more impressive that he couldn't sleep. King Ahasuerus couldn't sleep. Initially, it seems like such a little thing, but the real question is why? Why couldn't the king sleep? Usually, alcohol leads to one passing out. The answer is because of the sovereignty of God. God was not about to let Haman execute Mordecai or the nation Israel, so this very night he needed the king not to sleep, so he kept him awake. Dr. C.I. Schofield said, "Here is a remarkable instance of the veiled providence and control of God over circumstances in human history. Upon the king's insomnia, humanly speaking, hinged the survival of the chosen nation, the fulfillment of prophecy, the coming of the Redeemer, and therefore the whole work of redemption. Yet the outcome was never in doubt, because God was in control, making the most trivial of events work together for Haman's defeat and Israel's preservation." When you read the Bible, you discover there have been many times when God powerfully worked through a sleepless night. Darius could not sleep the night Daniel was in a lion's den. God could not sleep when Job was suffering. Paul could not sleep the night the Jewish leaders wanted him dead. The church could not sleep the night Peter was in jail, so they prayed. In every one of these cases, God was powerfully at work into the wee hours of the morning. Insomnia is the last place one would expect to find God working, but it was in this one little case of insomnia that God was sovereignly working, and God did sovereignly work. I know the case of a Christian man who, it was around Christmas time, was informed by his boss that he was going to have to be laid off. This Christian man was a faithful man, a good man for the company. He worked hard. He was loyal. His boss would later say that night after he told him he was going to have to lay him off, he went home, he could not sleep, he was restless, he tossed and turned all night. By morning, he had decided that he was going to not lay this man off. So he went in and informed him he was not going to be laid off. And my question is, who turned that person's mind during the middle of the night not to lay off this Christian man? It was God. Perhaps you haven't been sleeping lately. Perhaps you feel as if your whole world is boxed in. Perhaps you feel as if you're doing menial tasks. Remember, God is still sovereign. God is still working in your life. And if you are discovering that you have a difficult time sleeping at night, ask God either to let you go to sleep or ask the Lord to impress upon you why he wants you awake, because God sovereignly controls insomnia. God is with you in school. God is with you on your job. He's with you in your relationships. If you're having a difficult time sleeping, ask the Lord why it is he wants you awake. The second demonstration is God sovereignly controlled the king's remedy, verses 1 to 3. The king could not sleep, so he gave an order to bring the book of records, the Chronicles, and they were read before the king. It was found written that Mordecai had reported concerning Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's eunuchs who were the doorkeepers, as they had sought to lay hands on King Ahasuerus. The king said, "What honor or dignity has been bestowed on Mordecai for this?" Then the king's servants who attended him said, "Nothing has been done for him." Now here's another glimpse of the powerful providential sovereignty of God. The king could not sleep. His remedy for insomnia was having the Persian historical records brought to him and read to him. There's certainly nothing like reading historical minutes that would put you to sleep. Dr. J. Vernon McGee said he got off of every board that he could because he just could not stand the boredom of listening to the minutes being read. Truth is, if you read Persian history, it would be something that would tend to keep you awake. Because in Persian history, there were many stories of assassinations and assassination plots. Now, there are four facts that clearly show the sovereignty of God that I want to bring out to you. Number one, there was an accurate record of historical events that had been kept. Accurate notes had been kept, so these various acts were chronicled so that the king could have them read to him. God does work through systematic things. God is a God of order, not chaos. Record keeping is very biblical. It is very, very right. When we moved here from the West, there was a doctor out West who was in serious trouble because he had not kept accurate records concerning his patients. God wants us to be people who are systematic, people who are orderly, and people who are given to what is right, and records are being kept of what is right. That's exactly the way it worked here. Secondly, there was an honest report given by Esther. Had Esther previously in any way distorted facts concerning Mordecai, had she tried to take credit for herself, she would have been a loser right here. But the fact that she had reported the truth later came full circle and was about to be used by the Lord to spare Mordecai and eventually the whole nation Israel. There's something that we've always taught our children. Always tell the truth. Be willing to take the consequences for your decisions, but always tell the truth. And what we see in this text is the fact that Esther had told the truth, that it was Mordecai that had revealed this plot, now comes back full circle and will be used by the Lord to actually save the nation Israel. The third fact is there was a specific reading of Mordecai's faithfulness. Now, of all the places in history that the king could have read, it's amazing that he read the faithful account of Mordecai on the very night Haman wanted to kill Mordecai. Mordecai was a faithful servant. He was responsible for saving the king's life. It's no coincidence that the king couldn't sleep, nor is it a coincidence that he decided to read, nor is it a coincidence that he decided to read specifically of Mordecai's faithfulness. You see, God was in control of all of this. He was even controlling the reading material of the king. And by the way, there's something that's interesting here. He's reading things that are true. If you want to see the work of God, spend your life